Hey everyone, it's Sam from the Danger Planet, and today I'm going to talk to you about instrumental play. So this is a new segment we're trying here, the Danger Planet, which is basically me talking to you about something that's going on in the wargaming world, or more broadly in gaming, and what I think about it. So this time we're going to be talking about instrumental play. So that's something that I actually learned about fairly recently, although I was aware of the concept before that. I had never heard the term until I watched the foldable human video, Dan Olson, called Why It's Rude to Suck at Warcraft. And the basic premise of the video is that it is about instrumental play. It is about how when you are playing a game, there are different ways to play. And one way is, for example, to play to explore, to have fun, to see what happens. But instrumental play is play that is directed towards achieving a very specific goal. And because it's directed towards achieving that goal, the play part sort of becomes secondary. If there was a more efficient way to achieve that goal, maybe you do that. So I think that the most classic example of instrumental play in wargaming is tournament play. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm a pretty big tournament grinder from Malifaux. I was a tournament grinder in War Machine Hordes before that, and I'm sure that at some point it's going to be my turn in the barrel, and I'm going to be a tournament grinder for Warhammer 40k. But when you play that way, it adjusts your mindset in a way that you don't necessarily notice while it's happening, because you start thinking, well, I just want to be a better player. And, well, how do you tell if someone's a better player? Well, it's because they win more games. And that is such an incredibly baseline assumption that it's completely unquestioned in our whole field. But what you really are saying when you say that is that a person who is playing a game and who wins that game is somehow succeeding more at their goal than a person who didn't win but had a lot of fun. And that just kind of doesn't make a lot of sense if you think about it, like the whole point of play. Like, what is play? What are we even doing here? So the thing is, this is not meant to be a criticism of tournament players, and I really don't want it to come across that way. It is simply another way to enjoy the game, but that's kind of my point. It's just another way to enjoy the game, and I think the default assumption in a lot of communities is that it is the way to play the game or to enjoy the game. So in this context, I'm talking a bit now about game stats. So game stats, I think, are a major way that wargaming has changed since I started playing, which was a long time ago. Jeez. Back when I started playing, people kind of knew that some factions were better than other factions, and there were tournaments at that time, but they weren't anything like the size that they are now, and they certainly weren't as well publicized. And so when I was a lot younger, again, a long time ago, I was a moderator on the Warhammer 40k forum, Librarium Online, in case anyone remembers that. Probably not. So we basically talked a lot about the game, about the fiction, about the lore, about our favorite armies, stuff like that. And there were these discussion threads about, what is a strong build? What is a powerful army list? And those were kind of fun because they were kind of freewheeling, and it was clear that a lot of the people talking didn't really know. They knew some things, but people's individual metas were a lot smaller. A lot of times there would be an army that you'd never played against in playing the game for a while because nobody in your store played that. And I mean, over the course of me being part of the hobby, it gradually became a lot larger and a lot more social. And it's great that it's larger because, we love the hobby expanding. But it also meant that the information was a lot more networked. You didn't have to guess what was good because enough games were now being played that what was good could be pretty reliably determined from it. And it's not just that more games were being played, but we were getting more data from those games because we're, pushing into the smartphone age. We're pushing into the age of constant internet connection. We're pushing into the age where people who have aptitude in statistics, put that to work for them in order to assist their hobbies. So what we're getting gradually over this period is this more firm sense, not just of what the metagame is, but just the idea that there is a metagame. There's reaching this consensus that actually everyone else's Warhammer is pretty much like my Warhammer, and it's pretty much like the game I'm playing at home, and I can draw conclusions and extrapolations from what they're doing. And I think it sounds like, people, I'm not saying people weren't aware of that before. It's always been a very, global hobby. We had White Dwarf, but people became more aware of how many players were in their backyard specifically that they hadn't yet played against. And so they began to think of themselves, I think, as part of this larger metagame in this larger community. And when you do that, when you're part of this larger community, then who you are as a player kind of gets lost a little. You don't have this, you're not, the Tyranid guy, because all of a sudden there's now your gaming group is aware of the hundreds or thousands of people who are playing Tyranids in your area. You're not the Tyranid guy in your group anymore. So it's kind of like, who are you? And I think a result of that has been people have been trying to identify a lot less with their individual army, or maybe even, you know, their like specific play style, and just more with their rank. Because if you know your rank, and you know, I'm not talking like chess elo, it's not that level of precision, but if people know you in your store as the good player who wins all the time, or like the guy who's always on the bubble and is going to break through one of these days, that's a specific person you can be, and it's a person you can be in a pretty large community, because tournaments can have, you know, lots and lots of people and still produce like one winner, one second place, one third place. So I think around this time we started to think of competitive play and ranking and stats as sort of a way for us to carve out a space for ourselves in wargaming. And I think that was fun for a lot of people also, because part of this game has always been competitive, and it's, you know, it is completely pointless to ignore that or to pretend it's not the case. This is a competitive game. People who play it want to win. You often have lots of other considerations in your mind, like you want to, you know, show off your beautifully painted army, you want to make friends, you want to tell a story, you want to, you know, execute some kind of cool tactic that maybe is suboptimal but is fun to watch. But ultimately, when you put down the models and you roll your dice, you're trying to win. Nobody like goes under the table and deliberately tries to lose. So when everybody's doing this, playing this in a certain way, things start to get instrumental, because now your goal isn't as much to necessarily explore all the different ways you could play Warhammer, and like try out all the different like fun subsets of rules. Now you're prepping for tournaments because you want to win them. Now that takes a lot of effort. You really want to be good at it. So this type of play starts absorbing other types of play. And again, I don't think that's inherently problematic, because there are many different ways to play a game, and there's no reason to say that one is better or worse than the others. So if you just find yourself gravitating towards tournament play, then great for you. The issue is that not just the way people started playing more, which is more towards tournaments, but also the way they were doing it. Because remember, as I said, we're starting to get more data in this time period. We're starting to get more, you know, more of a complete picture of what the game looks like, the metagame. There's starting to be some sophisticated analysis. And if you're trying to accomplish a specific goal here, you're trying to win tournaments and increase your rank, then all of a sudden you need to start paying attention to that stuff. Even if you're, you know, playing a very low tier army and you have no expectation that you're going to win, you still want to play the version of that army that is, you know, reasonably good, that wins games, right? Like, it's no fun, you know, to roll up to a board playing a Skitarii horde right now. Adeptus Mechanicus is very much not a good index, but to the extent that it has a build that can win games, it's, you know, heavy on Cataphron Breachers. So when you have this kind of thing going on, there's this pressure, this slight but unconscious pressure to even players who are not trying to go all out and be competitive, to be aware of what is competitive, right? To keep abreast of the metagame. It sort of puts this as homework on everybody, because if you don't play in this style, if you really stubbornly say, I'm literally not going to care if I win or lose, but everyone else around you is playing to win, you're going to get crushed every time. You know, it's not going to be like a fun, close game where you're, you know, special like chapter formation that you have, you know, got a story for each model, fought bravely in a very close battle. You're going to get like swept off the board. So where we're at now is we've had this transformation of the community over time as it grows and networks. We've had this elevation of competitive tournament play as sort of the yardstick, the default system of play, as it were. And now you've also got this pressure to make use of statistics to, you know, improve your game in some way. And I think the combination of these factors right now is that if somebody goes on Reddit, having gotten home from their local Warhammer store and bought, you know, a battle force of whatever army they like, plus maybe one box of guys they thought looked cool, and they post these on the subreddit, chances are they're going to get at least one comment that's like, don't play those guys, they're trash. Like, you know, don't play these Skitarii Rangers, you have to build them as Vanguard because Rangers are terrible. And all of a sudden this guy's like, well, what the hell? Like, I mean, did I make a mistake? It's like my first day, I don't know anything yet. And I think that everyone can see that that's like that's problematic, right? It's problematic for, a retention of players. I think that, Games Workshop specifically has enough onboarding, to not necessarily be stressed about this. But I play other games. I've been talking about Warhammer this whole time. But like if somebody's playing Malifaux and they are looking at all the crews and they pick their first crew, and then what they say is like, I really like playing Lucius, like original Lucius, not even title form. I like that guy, I like his mask and his pocket watch, whatever. Like the first thing they're probably going to be told is like Lucius is like kind of blows right now. Like Lucius is really bad. And in a sense that's relevant to this guy. But in another sense, it just makes him feel like he's immediately made a mistake. Because the thing is, if he likes Lucius, he should play Lucius. And he's going to lose a lot of games because he's new. You don't need to get somebody on, that hard stuff right away. But if this guy picks up Lucius and then he goes and he plays a bunch of games and he loses most of them, or because, he's a new player, he doesn't know very much, but maybe his opponent's a new player too, so he wins one or two. If that guy is in that position and he doesn't go online, and when he goes online, people just say, sweet Lucius crew, he's going to feel like, okay, maybe I'm making progress at this game. But if he's primed because he goes on and he says, and he reads like, oh man, you fucked up, you bought the worst guy, he's the worst master, Lucius, he's trash. And the guy then goes and he loses like 9 of his first 10 games. Like he's just gonna feel like an idiot. He's gonna feel like, oh my god, I am stupid. I picked the worst master. Like, and then that's not gonna make him want to pick a different master. That's just gonna make him feel bad about the game and about himself. So just like, even if he's not actually changing his decisions at all based on that metagame information being out there, it being out there affects the way he plays and enjoys the game. And so the sort of point I want to close on here is that you can say, and I think that this is a valid argument. I do want to address it head on. You can say like, well, we shouldn't let people play, terrible armies. Like Games Workshop or Weird or Corvus Belli or whatever company, they made that army bad. It was their mistake. The player shouldn't be punished for their mistake. He should learn what armies are good and bad, and then he can make an informed decision. But if he wants to play a good army, at least now he won't be tricked into playing a bad one. And the thing is, like, even that statement is exactly what I'm talking about, because that whole statement is totally reasonable and totally generous and, well thought out, as long as you accept as a given that the goal of the game is to play what's strong and to win. And because there are many other ways to enjoy the game, that's not always true. But the more prevalent that attitude is, the more it becomes the truth for everybody. And I just think that we lose something pretty valuable when we do that. So I hope you enjoyed this short little rant. It got a little bit more cerebral than I was expecting, but I had a lot of fun recording it, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on instrumental play, on, metagame challenges, and maybe on this type of video and what kinds of topics you'd like to see me cover. So you can get to our Discord. Link is in the description. And in the Discord, you'll hear all about this and other gaming related topics. But please leave a comment, and subscribe. Thanks. Bye.